So I'm going to introduce Chandler. Okay, show of hands. How many people know who Chandler Crouch is? Woo! Oh, look at that. Fan club is here. So I'm not going to tell you a lot other than Chandler is a real estate professional. He's very good at what he does. He also was a victim of our local government, and that he was attacked. And I mean, they literally tried to run him into jail. It was ridiculous. But you know what? The man's got guts, and he knows how to work around that kind of bullying. Let me put it that way. So he wasn't bullied, and he came out on top. He and a few other people worked together, and we have some really amazing changes that have happened already on the Tarrant Appraisal District. So that's a good thing. We're moving in the right direction. We've seen that on our school board. We've seen that in several cities around us, both as council and school board, so that's fantastic. I'm excited to see the movement, and of course, you know, we have our wonderful county judge that's helping with that as well, Tim O'Hare. So, Chandler, I'll let you go ahead and come up and give all the instructions, and this is going to be our moderator for tonight. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you very much, Ms. Oakley. It is really cool that I've been invited here to moderate this, and we're standing here in front of the board, and we're all in this room talking about this subject. As she mentioned a little bit about the history, there has been a battle, and I believe that part of the battle that we had in Tarrant County has culminated in where we're at today and getting some taxpayer representatives on this board. It wouldn't be possible if it weren't for you guys. She mentioned there's a handful of people that were involved in the battle that she referenced that I was a part of. Joe Bennett's in the back here. He deserves accolades. We have Mr. Vince Puente, who's new on the board. He's part of the change. He's going to bring in a strong conservative voice, and even though he wasn't elected by the taxpayers, he's standing up for what's right. And I appreciate that. There's probably somebody else I'm forgetting, but those are the two people I saw. So today we are here to focus on our taxpayer representatives. We have 8 candidates. As Ms. Oakley mentioned, we've got a lot to cover, and so we're going to try and run a very tight ship. And if you haven't already filled out a card with a question, we do want to try to answer some questions, but it's going to be hard to get to that. So I'm going to try and be as brief as I can. But if you haven't already filled out a question that you want answered during a Q&A session, go ahead and do that and place them in the bucket in the back. And I see Ms. Oakley with her finger up. Yes, ma'am.
I did forget to tell you. So I think everybody in here probably knows who these people are, what positions they're running for and why, but some people may not. And Jack McGuire, do you have the little sheets? Y'all hold them up. If you would like one of these, it just says why. Why do we have these candidates, these new spaces? What happened? It tells you just briefly about things. If you want one of these to kind of give you an idea of why we're doing this, throw your hand up and John will come around and give you one. There you go. Many of you may have gotten it when you checked in, but some may not. Yeah. Just throw your hand up and we'll bring one to you. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you for that. Okay, so this position that they're running for is an unpaid volunteer position, and if you've seen the headlines, they're of everything that the appraisal district's been embroiled in the past couple of years. They are brave people, and so I commend them for throwing their hat in the ring and being willing to serve. And so what I want to do is I want to introduce the candidates, tell you a little bit about the race. Then we're going to go over some ground rules, and we're going to hop right into questions. So this race it's actually 3 different races. There are 3 places. And so all these candidates are not vying for the same position. We've got place 1, place 2, and place 3. And so what I'd like to do, just to start things off, is let everybody kind of put a face to the name, even though they've got the placards here. I want to go ahead and say your name. If you could just stand and wave, and then we'll go over some instructions, then we'll begin questions after that. So as I call your name, just stand. So for place 1, we have Saeda Syed. And I'll get you questions in a moment. And then we've got Trey Fowler, place 1. Eric Morris, place 1. For place 2, we've got Callie Rigney and Eric Crowell for place 2. And then place 3, we've got Chuck Kelly and Don't Stand. He just answered.
He's doing it in valid order.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was just reading off my list here. Sorry, yeah.
I'm Chuck Kelly. This is
Matt Bryant.
Matt
There
Bryant.
we go. All right. I got thrown off thinking about Chuck trying to stand on the foot. He just had surgery on him. That's not good. All right, so first, each candidate is going to be given 1 minute to introduce themselves. And then next, we're going to have 1 minute for everybody to answer each question. It's going to go very quick. Somebody's keeping time here for us right up front. Very good. And to make it fair, we're going to rotate the order of who's going to answer each question first. Because as I ask the question, the first person to answer is going to be on the hot seat. You got to kind of think on your toes. That means the last person is going to have a little bit more time to think. So we're going to rotate the order there. And then after all the questions have been answered, each candidate at the end will have 1 minute to make a closing statement. And so, and I just want to give everybody a heads up. All the candidates they were provided questions when they walked in the door tonight. And I just want to let you know, I've made the questions a little bit more concise than the copy you have. So that kind of gives you a general direction of which way we're going. But we've got to fit all this in. So, do any of the candidates have questions before we begin? All right, let's get going. Okay, so introductions. Let's start. And what I've done here is I'm not going to be able to think and talk at the same time. So I've got a cheat sheet on the order we're going to go in on all these questions. And so just get ready. It's going to feel like popcorn or something. But first question is, well, actually, we can just go in order on this. We're going to start with Syed, and then we're going to go all the way down. The first question. Introduction. Right, it's the introduction. So it's really simple. There we go. So this is your 1 minute introduction. The question prompt that we have here for you for your introduction is please describe specifically what qualifies you for this position, what sets you apart from your opponents. 1 minute intro.
Hi, I'm Sayeda Sayed. Can you hear me? Yeah. I'm Sayeda Sayed, and I'm running for Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors, Place 1. By profession, I'm a mechanical engineer. I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering. I became a naturalized citizen in 2011. I'm a Tarrant County resident for over 16 years. I'm living in Colleyville for over 10 years. I bought my first house back in 2009. I have a husband who I got married back in 2006, and I'm still married with that person. I have 2 kids, 11 and 8 years old, and they are in GCISD. Since 2017, I'm serving with several boards and commissions with City of Colleyville. There's a whole list of that, from Metro Teen Court, Architectural Review, Planning Zoning, and I was ARB on back in 2019-2020.
Thank you, Syed. You can go ahead and hand the microphone to Trey.
I'm going to go quickly. I want to first of all thank my wife, son, and mother-in-law for giving me the time and the effort to run in this. I want to thank y'all for allowing me to do it. My name is Trey Fowler. I'm a lifetime resident of Haltom City in Tarrant County. I spent 11 years as mayor and council member there. I'm a business owner for the last 31 years. But more importantly, I'm a property owner. I've been a property owner for 35 years. I have 29 parcels that I, get the opportunity to deal with in this appraisal process, and have had the opportunity to deal with for many years. It's important that you understand this process. So I feel like that I'm uniquely qualified to be a representative for you, just simply based on the fact that, I understand the process. I've been through it. I know what your aches and pains are. I know every year when I open those blue letters, what you're looking at, what you're dealing with. So once again, I'm Trey Fowler. I appreciate y'all's time.
Hi everyone, I'm Eric Morris. I'm a lifelong resident of Haltom City, Tarrant County, and I'm currently on City Council for Haltom City. Amongst my proudest accomplishments on Haltom City was securing the H Mart grocery store and shopping center that's currently under construction. Not very many council members can say that. It's a very difficult thing to pull off. And I'm running to be your top taxpayer advocate on the TAG Board of Directors, Place 1. I have a solid track record of providing excellent constituent services to my voters and bringing results for taxpayers. And I want to bring those success stories to the TAG Board. So I'm hoping as we talk throughout this discussion that you will agree that I'm most qualified to handle this position. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Callie Rigney. I'm a Christian conservative, 6th generation Texan who was raised right here in Tarrant County. I'm the daughter of public educators. wife to a Navy veteran, Wayne, of 20 years, and mother to 3 baseball-playing boys, Drake, Carson, and Sterling. They're 18, 16, and 11, so please pray for me. I graduated from Texas Tech University with a degree in business. Go Raiders. I've worked in finance with my husband, Wayne, who owns a financial services business right here in Grapevine. I've been Mayor Pro Tem, and I've served on the Colleyville City Council for the last 6 years. We lowered our tax rate every year for the last 6 years, and I want to bring that same fiscal responsibility to the TAP board.
Good evening. My name's Eric Crowell. I'm running for place 2. I have been in Texas for 17 years. I'm a firefighter here in the Metroplex, and my wife is about 3 weeks away from having our first child, so I'm really excited for that. Thank you. So I said I was a firefighter, right? So firefighters, when you call 911, what do you want? You want us to solve a problem. So there's problems in TAD right now. And my resume isn't as long as everyone else up on this board, but I do have ideas to go in and solve some of these problems. And I just hope that you'll vote for me when it comes time. Thank you.
Hi, Matt Bryant. Lisa, thanks for coming tonight, my lovely wife. I'm a Christian, unashamed, saved by the blood of Christ, and really am excited when we come to a group like this and we open with prayer. Thank you so much. I'm excited for this election. The taxpayers have been marginalized for 45 years by having the taxing entities appoint members for the TAD board rather than have an election. So this is exciting. As a result of mismanagement for 20 years, and that's been my experience with the appraisal district for the last 20 years. I own many properties in Tarrant County, about 70 accounts. So I've been down there battling with these guys for the past 15 years. I know them inside out. But TAD's broken. It's not working. It's a dumpster fire. We need a fireman. I mean, and the flames just keep getting higher. So TAD needs to be reformed, and I look forward to having a chance to share my plans with you on what I would do to reform it.
Hi, I'm Chuck Kelly. Some of y'all might know me in this room. I've been on Colleyville City Council with Mayor Pro Tem Rigney for the last 6 years. I did 2 years on our planning and zoning before that. And I am also a property owner and a proud Christian. I'm not going to go into all of that. My background is IT. IT is the biggest issue that we have with TAD board right now. I've been in IT 36 years. I bring that experience to the board to help them. They've had IT issues since at least 2016. They've been hacked numerous times, and they're currently under a hacking ransomware activity for over $700,000. So I want to bring that same experience that I've had in Colleyville City Council, in the other boards and positions that I've had, to TAD and to help them resolve the problems. Thank you.
Just hang on to the microphone right there,
Okay.
Chuck. You're gonna be the first person to get the first
I can
question.
go first?
Yeah. All right. So there are a lot of misconceptions about what the TAD Board of Directors does. What do you feel is the most important job for a publicly elected TAD board member to do, and what do you want to accomplish?
I think the most important job is for us to hold them accountable. Right now, there is a large amount of everybody pointing in different directions, nobody taking responsibility for what's happening. Mr. Puente and some of the people that have gotten on the board lately are starting to turn that ship around. I think these 3 positions will be instrumental in that. I want to bring, as I said, my IT experience, my background in creating processes and procedures, and have those defined for the appraisal process and for the appraisal review process or protest. Nobody understands them. They're not recreatable, and I honestly don't understand how they work. If anybody else does, more power to you. But my job is to define process and allow that to go through and show the end user or taxpayer what they need to do to protest and get logical appraisals.
Good, thank you. Eric Morris, same question. Do you need me to repeat the question? You got. If y'all need me to repeat any questions, just let me know. I'll go ahead and repeat it one more time, and then we'll just keep rolling down the list here. And if you need me to repeat, just let me know. There are a lot of misconceptions about what the TAD Board of Directors does. What do you feel is the most important job for a publicly elected TAD board member to do, and what do you hope to accomplish?
So the two top tasks of any board member on an appraisal district is to pass the budget, hire, fire, evaluate the chief appraiser. The second one's the most important because historically the problems that TAD has faced was because of a previous chief appraiser who had a board who would not hold his feet to the fire. And that's going to be the number one thing that I think will continue to get TAD in this positive direction that it is now heading, is making sure that we hold the chief appraiser accountable.
Thank you. Syed, same question.
So I heard hiring and firing of a chief appraiser is important, but after July 1st, TAD has a very important job as well. TAD board I'm talking about is the appointment of appraisal review board members. Previously, it was done by administrative judge. After July 1st of this year, it was done by TAD board members with at least 2 votes from elected board members. So it's my opinion, it's very important. And the most important job of the TAD is to timely certification of tax roll. That is the most important. Otherwise, all those taxing entities will not be able to work on their budget timely. Agree, right?
That's good.
And I would like to thank Laura Oakley to invite us. And yes, I have time, so 10 seconds. And Republican Club as well. Thank you.
Kelly, you are up next. Same question.
Of course, we select the chief appraiser and adopt a budget, but I think what people really want to know is they have representation there and they have people that have their back and work for their best interests. I want to reform TAD policies to reduce burdens on property owners, and that includes appointing taxpayer-friendly appraisal review board members. I think a lot of people want to feel heard during that process, and I think it's good that we, for the TAD board, communicates how they why they make decisions and how they got there, and just kind of communicate that to the public. But I think the number one thing is just working for the best interest of the taxpayers.
Thank you. Eric Crowd.
I think the number one goal of the TAD board should be to develop a culture that's friendly towards the taxpayer. Yeah, they passed the budget and they hired the chief appraiser and new board, Ms. Puente, and the chief appraiser. The transparency between this and the last board has been night and day, 1,000% better. I think the board needs to be transparent, and what I mean by transparency is we need to have policies to know that the value of your property is trustworthy. Excuse me. Some of the things I'd like to accomplish is software. I understand they're driving, the new chief appraiser's driving to get new software for 2025. So I'd like to see that. And change the culture. It can't be us against them. It's got to be, we have to be there for the taxpayer. Thank you.
Trey Feller.
Is this on? What we're going to have to start with, like I said, I do this year in and year out, as many of y'all know. It's critical that we continue the progress of Mr. Puente and the board members that are there. They've done a good job in starting to ferret out a bunch of the problems. They can't do it alone, and you need representatives that you can go to that are accountable from your voting. One of the most important things that I think needs to be done is complete and full transparency, and it's easy to say transparency. When I say transparency, I'm talking about developing a system that educates all the taxpayers, and it may be as simple as creating a series of videos that's instructional, that talks from the time you receive your blue slip, how it was derived, then the next video may be providing a mood type system, because how many taxpayers have gone in there that first time and have no idea what they're fixing to walk into? They have no clue. And we don't educate them, we don't give them an opportunity to be successful. To do that, I mean,
Matt Ryan.
The role of the board is pretty simple. It's to lead the chief appraiser, and in leading the chief appraiser, invariably you're going to work closely with the senior admin and senior staff. But as far as my goals, the immediate goals, we need to see our appraisal district be more taxpayer friendly rather than being friendly to the taxing entities. And again, that lean, there's so many ways that this appraisal district needs to lean in a different direction. I can give specific examples if I had more time, but maybe my closing statement. But again, our job is to lead the chief appraiser, and I think a great goal is to let's make this more taxpayer friendly rather than being friendly for the taxing entities.
Terrific, thank you. The next question is, might give you a chance to elaborate a little bit on some of the things you'd like to accomplish. And the first question is going to go to Eric Morris. It is, what is one thing you think TAD should start doing, and what's one thing you think TAD should stop doing?
I'll start off with that by explaining a common complaint that I have heard in Haltom City. A lot of Haltom City is an older community and is in more decrepit condition. A lot of it was built back in the 50s and 60s. Common complaint I have heard from folks when TAD comes up in that area, they tell me, look at my property. It was built back in the 50s and 60s. Explain to me how this appraisal increase is justifiable. Just a quick look, and you can't believe those notices that they're getting. The number one thing that TAD needs to start doing is I believe the staff needs to actually, because this is a computer system that comes up with these numbers, these appraisals, they need to actually, for these older properties, they need to take a look at these properties, these more decrepit properties, before they actually send a notice in the mail. Because quick look at a decrepit property and what they're getting in the mail, common sense tells you it's not actually worth that much.
Saida, you are next. What's one thing TAD should start doing, one thing TAD should stop doing?
TAD should listen to the property owners first. That they should start doing. What they should stop, please do the appraisals or valuations as per valuation. Like Mr. Morris said, I agree with him. A lot of times, those appraisals are not justified. While I was on appraisal review board, I saw several issues that need to be addressed. And number one is overvaluation. Number two, disconnect with the property owners. There is a total disconnect with the district and property owners. Inappropriate removal of exemptions, that's another issue. There are several inaccuracies in split zoning cases using commercial land value for residential units. That's illegal. They should stop doing that.
Thank you. Kelly?
I think a question a lot of us want to know is how do they arrive at these values? What are the processes? I think the public needs to know how they arrive at their valuations and be clear and communicate with the public. One thing that I did notice recently that the board members' names and emails are available, so you can contact your representative on the board just to ask a question. I mean, I think there's got to be some clear communication with the public, just so we know exactly how everything operates up there. Because I don't know all the things, do y'all? Because I mean, we're all kind of wondering what's going on. So I'm open to exploring and analyzing and looking at all the ways that we can make TAD better. But I won't know until I get in there and kind of do a deep dive there. Thank you.
Aircraft.
So one of the things I think TAD should start doing is sort of what Callie said. When they send out the notice to say what your home's worth, they're not telling you what appraisal process they use, whether they're using a cost comparison analysis or if they're doing a cost production analysis. So that's one thing I'd like to see. The other thing I'd like to see is looking through the budget, and maybe I missed it, but I didn't see anything for educational outreach. And so what do I mean by that? There's a lot of communities, disadvantaged communities, that have no idea homestead exemption exists. I run into people, at work all the time, and they're not aware how you can reduce your taxes through it. So I would like to see some type of outreach program put in place to let people know that, hey, there are exemptions available. And one thing I'd like them to stop doing is having IT system hacks.
Trey?
First thing we need to look at is ending mass appraisal, or if you can't end it, but there definitely needs to be a focus placed more on the actual property itself versus just mass appraisal. I've been out when appraisers have been out, just fortunately seen them and talked to them, and just kind of, while they've been on 2 or 3 houses, mine maybe on the street, and, they just kind of get out and they look, and you don't know who they are, so you walk up to them and hey, how can I help you? And that's why I'm the appraisal district, I'm appraising your property, and I'm like, how can you appraise it? All you're doing is looking at it from the street. So, we need to educate better. It all goes, so much of this goes back to educating and openness. Sunshine is the best solver. We have to go out and allow these, allow these appraisers, you have to give them some latitude when you can have walk-in customers. A lot of people don't know that you can walk in at protests. They don't know that you can go online. Like Eric had mentioned it, education is a huge factor in this.
Thank you. And just real quick before we continue here, if you haven't already submitted your questions, if you want to ask any questions, then go ahead and do that right now. We're going to have a deadline of, 6:45, so we're getting kind of relaxed here. 7 o'clock deadline to receive any questions. We'll screen those and then ask those at the end. All right, Matt Bryant. One thing that Tad should stop doing, one thing Tad should start doing.
Per tax code 2518, counties are to appraise every property at least once every 3 years. I would say immediately evaluate the periodicity of the appraisals once every 3 years. This way at least you get your poke in the eye once every 3 years rather than every year, which is what I've been experiencing. And it would also benefit the appraisal district, which is struggling from an operational standpoint, reducing the appraisals you've got to send out by 2/3. It also would reduce the protests. So again, to me, why not take a deep dive, look at tax code 2518. It clearly says it only has to be done once every 3 years. That's what I'd like to see happen right away.
Chuck?
I guess I'd start with ditto. I agree with everybody up here. I think the biggest thing that we need to start doing is outreach and education. We need to send the appraisers out into the neighborhoods, into the community centers, the senior centers, and they hold town halls, they hold question and answer sections. They show people how a protest works. We need that. I don't understand how the protests work. I doubt any of the rest of us really understand that. When my wife went to protest ours, they wrote a number on a piece of paper and handed it to her. How is that recreatable? So we need to create the process, and then we need to go out and teach people how the process works.
Terrific, thank you. All right, so we're going to continue in the vein of what ideas you might have, what you'd like to see improve, and we can all agree that TAD needs a lot of improvement, and a lot of improvements are going to require some money to be spent. It's going to require the budget to be increased, but that will result in us having to pay more taxes, and nobody wants to pay any more taxes. So, what are some improvements that you feel like would justify increasing the budget? And we'll start with Saida.
You You are starting most questions with me, so that's okay. Well, okay, the timer will start. So, okay, so first we need to increase budget for, definitely for IT, cybersecurity, and we need to look into it. The second thing TAD has to do is to stop paying for appraisal review board from TAD's budget. There should be a separate budget for ARB, not from TAD's budget. Their checks are issued by TAD. In my opinion, should be either from comptroller office or from ARB's budget. Need to increase? Definitely on IT, cybersecurity. Employee retention is very important. We need to look and increase the pay for valuable appraisers, because a whole lot of appraisers are leaving the district just for very little amount of money. So the neighboring districts are getting good appraisers from our district, and it's like a training center for other districts. They are getting trained employees from TAD.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Kelly, same question. What improvements do you feel would justify increasing the budget?
I'm never a fan of increasing budget. I would definitely look for ways to reduce wasteful spending, but again, I think the cyber attacks, the cybersecurity, the website, the data breaches, but without getting too much into the weeds, I think we need to do basic things like answer the phone, make sure the website is working, just the basic things. But definitely that would be money well spent, is to work on the website and the cybersecurity and all that.
Eric Crowell.
I'll say what everyone else has said: software, cybersecurity insurance. However, I'm not sure if TAD needs to raise their budget for that. The most recent data I could find was from 2021. Tarrant County already has the second highest budget of the appraisal districts in the state, behind Harris County. So I'm sure there's a way to move some money around to cover some of these aspects. The other thing I'd like to see money spent on is an audit of the IT department. I know there was an internal investigation, and we do an audit every year for finances, but I'd really like to see an auditing done on our IT department.
Trey.
Well, as a business owner, it's hard to be critical right off the bat. Like I say, you don't want to jump in until you actually do get in there and understand the situation. If you're going to spend money, I'm not an advocate of spending money, that's why I'm here. But I think there are, as far as you've got to do education, as our society moves so fast now, I don't keep up with technology like I should. I'm not the techno guy. But I think it's important that your employees, that's what their job is in front of a computer all day, is to make sure that they're trained well. That's an obvious. You have to spend some money on educating the public. I keep beating that, and I know I beat a dead horse, but it is critical that as a taxpayer, you know what your rights are, and you know what the processes and procedures, and we make it very, clarity in that is you have to gain respect with the community, and that'll go further than anything.
Terrific. Matt?
The question just makes my skin crawl. Talking of increasing a budget. This is a room full of fiscal conservatives, I'm imagining. And so really I'd like to focus more on, again, if we do appraisals once every 3 years and we reduce the operational, we should be able to reduce the budget. I mean, bring cost cutting. But as far as what immediately might drive some intelligent spend, yes, the software security issue, we need a robust plan, multiple stress tests, before we fan it back out. I mean, this is, and I'm certain Mr. Puente is knee-deep in this right now, and my hat goes off to you. I know it's getting a lot of attention, and that's not positive. We need to stop all this negative attention.
Chuck?
Again, ditto. IT, internal and external education, and then an internal audit of all of our systems. There are opportunities where we could look at partnering with Tarrant County and using some of their resources. Look at other places where we might be able to combine IT, operations, printing. We need to look at everything that happens there and see if there's a place where we can join one of the other services. The good thing that we have is that we'll have the tax assessor collector, who has already done work around bringing IT and other services together. So we can look at that experience, look for ways to reduce our budget, and still expand out services like we've done in Colleyville.
Eric Norris.
So I'd like to start off by saying I consider myself to be a very strong fiscal conservative. Oftentimes going through budgets, you'd be amazed as to how many times there's wasteful spending or way too much administrative overhead. So I'm not so certain we would necessarily need to increase the budget for some of the changes we need, but the big one that will require investment one way or another is the website. Last year when I went through the budget process in Haltom City, and it's not just us, a lot of cities had this same conversation. We saw what happened in Dallas and the Dallas Police Department with all these hacks and just how bad it was and happening repeatedly. So, and we had to make significant investments into our IT department, making sure they have what they need to be successful and keep our city secure. And we've been doing really well ever since. So that's going to be a big thing that we're going to have to look at, and also having to look at having multiple backups of all the data at TAC. So in the event that something like this does happen again with a ransomware attack, we have multiple options at our disposal and how we're going to respond to it when that time comes.
Terrific, thank you. Now, for the next question, I'll read it, but Callie, you're going to be first up. At TAD board meetings, public comments are confined to 5 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, or 3 minutes during called meetings or emergency meetings. No additional public comments are allowed when each agenda item is discussed, so you've got to do all the public comments at the beginning. So considering you are being elected to represent the interests of the public, would you propose the public comments stay the same or change, and why?
I would definitely change that. I think it's always funny to have a comment section at the beginning of the meeting before there's discussion on each item. In Colleyville, we have, a public hearing and discussion and let speakers come and speak on each item that we discuss. And then we have, general concern and comments at the very end of the meeting. And the reason why that's important is because a lot of times when there's discussion going on, they may have a question and they may be able to, I'm going to come up there and have a comment card and not have anything planned to come up there and fill out. But a lot of times when we're speaking, their question gets answered. And so we might eliminate some speakers from even coming up there for 5 minutes if we answer their question during the discussion. And so I would like to move the general concern comments to the end and have speakers have the ability to come speak on each item.
Terrific, thank you. Eric Kreil.
I'll say ditto. I just think that when you bring everybody up to the podium at the beginning to address their comments, as Callie said, they don't know what the board is going to discuss when they hit the agenda items. So I would like to see if you were going to make changes as the agenda items called, call up the speakers at that moment, let them speak specifically to that topic, discuss the agenda item, move to the next. If the speaker wants to address the board concerning a matter that isn't on the agenda that evening, I would hold that to the end. It also would allow people, if they forgot to make a comment during the agenda call, they could circle back at the end and still make the comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Trey?
Years ago when I served as mayor, we didn't have a time limit. I don't believe you put a time limit on citizens. If a citizen is going to take the time to come up and speak before a board, you don't need. Now, the chairman or the board director, whoever that's hosting the meeting, has to ask them to rein it in periodically, but that's one of the worst things in our democracy that you do is limit people and tell them you've got 3 minutes to explain something. That's not reasonable. If I'm taking the job and y'all elect me, you have my phone number, it's on my information, you can call me anytime except Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Easter. I'm willing to sit there if it takes half the night. I'm willing to sit there and do what needs to be done because that's critical to gaining respect of your whoever your constituent is, and it allows them to give the opportunity to really state what they need, what they're trying to get at. So I think it's critical that we all are willing to do that, and I'm sure everyone here probably does that, is willing to do that.
Thank you. Matt Bryan?
My input on this one is let the people speak. When I was on the school board in Southlake, we had periods where we would have 2 hours of public comments. Let the people speak. If we're doing our job as the appraisal district, you're not going to get the brutal 2 or 3 hour sessions. If you're doing your job, it's going to narrow tremendously. So with respect to whether you have it at the beginning, in the middle, at the end, I just think we need to be real transparent. We need to be accurate in what we put out there. We need to allow the speakers to have that time. But yeah, I don't like to put any restrictions on it whatsoever. Let the people speak.
Terrific. Chuck?
As Mayor Pro Tem Rigney said, in Colleyville, we open public comments after every item. I think it's important to have them after the item because then, as she said, people get to hear what our thoughts are. They can come up and speak to those. And in that process, I have changed my mind listening to people comment on various items. So I think it's incredibly important that we allow them to speak. The time frames, we've gone till 2:13 in the morning in some of our meetings. So we are very open to letting people speak as long as they need to get their points across. So I think that's always the most important thing. We do listen to people and give them the opportunity to share their stories with us because it's important and we need to listen.
Thank you. Eric?
Okay, so I've dealt with this topic quite a bit while being on city council in Haltom City. A couple of changes I like to make with the tag public comment issue. First of all, I hate sign-in sheets. I really hate it because a lot of times there's a lot of confusion. Voters come in for the first time for a meeting because there's a contentious item. They don't know there's a sign-in sheet, and then when their item comes up, they're told by staff, oh, sorry, you didn't sign up, you can't speak. Sorry, in my opinion, that's an attempt to disenfranchise people, first of all. The second change I'd like to see is any action item should have a public hearing. Any action item. I don't care about the routine stuff like approving the minutes. Nobody ever speaks at it when it comes to approving minutes. But if it's an action item, so if we're talking spending money, policy procedure, anything that has the effect of law, there needs to be a public hearing with that item.
Saida?
So when I attended that board meeting, what I missed there is the public hearing on agenda items. That's missing. And this is not city council meeting. I would say sometimes the start time is 8 a.m. and it goes until 6 p.m. So consider that as well. The citizen comments portion, it should be for all those comments which are not on agenda. So people can come and talk about that for those items which is not on agenda. But for each agenda item, they should have a separate public hearing before making any decision or before making any motion. I felt that that's missing in that board meetings. But I would like to say something. I haven't seen, other than one person, I haven't seen any of them in any TAD board meetings, especially the ransomware meetings and all those emergency meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next question, Eric Cryle is going to be leading off, and here is the question. There are other states that require homeowners to disclose their sales price whenever they purchase property. Texas property owners are allowed to keep the purchase price private, and however, currently appraisal districts will get that sales data from the Association of Realtors, the MLS. And so the question is, are you okay with this practice?
So I actually think the question is a little bit beyond the scope of what the board of directors would deal with. Sales price data, it's a privacy issue, I feel, so let the legislators down in Austin deal with that. But what I will say is MLS data is private data. And if the appraisal district has access to the data, then the homeowner should be able to get access to the same data when it comes to the protesting. We shouldn't have to go and, no, you do it for free, but there are many tax protesting entities that charge to get that MLS data. So I would just like to see, again, whatever the appraisal district has access to, the taxpayer should have access to as well.
Perfect. Trey, questions to you?
No, sir, MLS should not be disclosed. I mean, there's no reason that they need your data unless you choose to bring it as part of your appraisal hearing, then it's your choice. But at any point, no, I don't think that they should be able to use MLS data. I think that, you know, there's enough appraisal out there that if someone wants to, you know, forego that right and allow them to look at that, I think that they're more than welcome to do that. But other than that, no, sir, I don't think so.
Matt Bryan.
I do not agree with the state requiring the disclosure of sale price. I've had multiple properties I've purchased where non-disclosure was written into the agreement. Now, why would that happen? Maybe it's an estate and that they want to be protective of what the value was. You know, marital disputes. Again, if someone in this great state wants to write a non-disclosure into the contract, we should have that right every day of the week. As far as TAD and MLS, you know, sharing data, you know, I'm not a realtor, but I believe that realtors can, you know, write their contract where it doesn't have to be disclosed. So that would be something that would prevent that data being shared.
Chuck Kelly.
I believe that the data is private. Your data should always be private. And as we saw during the boom a couple of years ago, people were paying tens and twenties of thousands of dollars over asking price. And that number then creates a false sense of what the house is worth. We need to use the data that we have publicly available, and as they've said, we all need to have access to it. I think that if somebody doesn't want that data disclosed, they shouldn't have to have it happen. So I don't think that we should be sharing that data.
Eric Morris.
Okay, so this is a property rights issue, okay? If you don't want that data disclosed, you should have the right to make sure that that data is not disclosed. There's a couple of problems with those who support the state mandating that this data is disclosed. First of all, you're making the assumption that this data will lead to more accurate appraisals. As we can obviously tell, that's not what's happened. It's not necessarily going to lead to accurate appraisals. Second, and the biggest issue, there is an overwhelming amount of data and studies that have shown that states that mandate that you must report the selling price of a property tends to lead to artificially higher appraisals than states that do not mandate disclosure of the sales price of property. And that's the biggest issue. So I'm strongly against and opposed to any effort requiring either a realtor group or individuals to disclose the price of a property when they buy or sell it.
Saida.
Can you repeat the question?
Yep. The bottom line here is, are you okay with the appraisal districts getting sales price data from MLS systems?
Simple answer, no. And Texas does not require to disclose the sales price. But what's going on there, some of the TAD employees are licensed realtor as well. So they have access to MLS data. And MLS is a private entity. And they are selling data or just using that data to tax people or increase our valuation. On the other hand, this is for residential units only. For commercial property, appraisal districts never get data. It's all hiding and it's not disclosed to public. So what's going on there, the burden from commercial property sale is transferring towards residential sales. And that's another issue. Need to fix that. Millions of dollars in commercial real estate property tax is not getting, the taxing entity is not getting the right number of tax dollars, just because they are shifting the burden from commercial property to residential. And that's why Mr. Morris mentioned about very high tax rate
Thank
and
you, Sally.
tax bills in his area.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Kelly?
First answer is no. I could see how someone would argue in a capitalist market we'd have to have access to all the same information, but in this scenario, I want to respect the property owner's rights and their privacy. I'm for less government in my business and overreach and knowing exactly what's going on in every little aspect of my life, so I would not want to do that to anyone else. So I would definitely respect their privacy there.
Terrific. All right, the next question, Trey Fowler's going to be the lead off. Some of you serve on a board currently as either an appointed or an elected official, and so I am curious, do you feel like being an official on a board already is a positive or a negative, and why?
It depends on what board you're referring to as, you know, I mean, different things you serve on give you different life experiences. Serving as mayor and council, I've seen exactly what happens. We're all here about taxes. A lot of it's the property tax appraisals, but the appraisal is not necessarily the problem. You get the problem when the appraisal district puts it, gives you your numbers. You look at it. Well, then the cities say, well, we're going to lower your, and not just the cities, but all the taxing entities say, well, we're going to lower your rate, but yet they still levy more taxes. So it's based on the effective rate, or the no new tax rate is what it's called. It used to be the effective rate for some of you old timers. I'm an old timer myself. But it's not just the taxing entity. It's important that those numbers are correct, and that we know. That's why I say in education, knowing where the burden ends up lying when taxes are increased is not necessarily the appraisal district, but the numbers that are driven from the cities and municipalities.
Thank you, sir. Matt Bryant?
So, I served on the local school board over in South Lake during just a phenomenal time. And I was proud to be able to stand in the gap against some woke curriculum that was trying to be forced, literally, onto our school board. So, I've got a history of saying, being an elected official in the past, I think it's a positive. I know what I'm getting myself into. Now, that being said, you should ask, well, then why would you do it? My sweet wife, she said, Matt, no one knows the appraisal district like you do. I see you go down there every April and May and handle all of our accounts and battle and fight. It's an inefficient appraisal district. It's been a real pain in my rear for about 15 years, but it's a necessary evil. It's my number one expense, property taxes on my business. So my wife encouraged me, and again, it's because of our experience of me having been an elected official. We're excited. We're excited to have the chance to serve the community some more. It's a good example for my boys. I've always told my family, if you can be a leader, be a leader. Be president of your men's organization. Be president of the glee club that you're in. So those are my thoughts about elected officials.
Chuck?
Well, in Colleyville, we've taken an active role in countermanding the appraisal district. We've lowered our rate 5 years in a row down to the no new revenue rate. We're the only city probably in the state that has done this. So we understand it. I'm able to explain it to our average taxpayer, to anyone else that asks me, what are the two levers? The lever that the appraisal board pulls and the bigger lever that the city or other taxing entity pulls. So I'm able to give them information and explain it in a way that they understand. So I believe that that's an experience that gives me an advantage and gives everyone else up here that has served an advantage.
Eric Morris?
So I think serving on a city council, it's very, very important to have that experience being on the TAG board. If you look at the responsibilities of a board member for TAG, hire fire chief appraiser, pass the budget, pass certain policies and procedures. Responsibilities on city council, you pass the budget, hire, fire, evaluate the city manager, you pass certain policies and procedures for the city. It's very, very similar. During my time on council, I've learned how to navigate the bureaucracy. I know how to identify those tricks that staff pull on you to try to get you to vote one way or another or vote against the interests of the community. I've seen it all. And it's very, very valuable experience. The TAB board is very similar to an experience that you would see when you're on a city council or a school board. So it's definitely a huge plus.
Saeed. Some people serve on a board as an elected or appointed official, and some don't serve. Do you feel like being an official on a board already is a positive or negative, and why?
Well, TAD has the culture of appointing former taxing entities on their board. Currently, we have, I think, 3 of them were either city council or school board members. For elected official, I would say now it's in your hand, and your vote will decide what you want to do. You want to continue the culture that we have before of appointing or at this time electing taxing entities, or you want someone on the board who has the experience of lowering the property tax, and that's me. I was the one who served as appraisal review board member, and out of 2 years, 3 months in a row, I did work for the taxpayer and help people lowering their, not the tax bill, but their valuation. So please do consider that.
Kelly?
Listen, friends, now more than ever, we're all living in America right now. We need unapologetic leaders that are willing to fight for what's right. I mean, you've got to have some pretty thick skin to be standing in one of these elected positions. And you have to be confident in your ability to make decisions. You've got to be confident in the decisions that you make, because let's face it, if you don't have critics, you're not really making a difference, right? So, I mean, we've done that. I've done that on the colleague for city council. And I will not shy away from tough decisions.
Eric Robb?
Look, we've had elected officials on the board before, and now we have an elected official now in Blaylock on the board. And it's got Tad in the trouble that they're in today. So I actually serve on a board. I serve on the dreaded HOA board, right? Right, everybody laughs at that.
Oh, yes, I did.
So my HOA board, though, it's nonpartisan, and this position's nonpartisan, and everyone up here, we had to file as nonpartisan. And I really think the goal for these 3 taxpayer positions, or these 3 elected positions, are the taxpayer. Republican, Democrat, put your flags away. It's nonpartisan. You know, we should be here to serve people every day. I serve people every day. When your house is on fire, I do not care what flag you fly. I'm just here to help people. Thank you.
All right. Matt, you're going to be first up after I finish reading this question. Over the past few years, we've had all sorts of scandals and headlines going on at the appraisal district, and there was one board member standing alone during those years, and he was calling for the resignation of the chief appraiser. A lot of those votes were, almost every vote for anything consequential was a 1-4 vote, and this board member was standing alone. Y'all can guess who it is. Yeah. Anyway, he was great. So when it comes time to stand up for something you believe in, will you be like a lot of other politicians where they get into office and then they start not voting with their conviction for whatever reason, whether they're just trying to make their peers on the board seem, make them happy because of a deal they've made, or maybe they're trying to look good, like everybody's in solidarity, or will you be willing to stand alone and stand on your conviction? I'll just like to say, of course, we all know how the story ended, but because of Rich voting alone for really years, then we are where we are today because of that. And it's only because of man standing on conviction in an unpopular way. So how can you convince us that you are going to actually do that instead of doing what a lot of other rhino-type politicians have done to get in office and then kind of change the tune? And we're going to go with Matt.
Well, like I said earlier, I've already done it. People ask, was that a tough time for you? No. No, when you know who you are and you have resolve, you follow a path. Rich Diot and I are pals. We're pals, for one. He came to me to gain support to get appointed when I was on the school board. That's part of the appointing process. But Rich and I have been in constant communication for the past 4 years. I give him my feedback because I spend so much time down there with Tad. We've found it useful to just kind of do touch points. It's what led me to have a conversation with you when he said, "Man, you got to talk to Chandler here what he's going through." It was horrifying, horrifying. Thank you for what you did. But yeah, I think with respect to, will I go against the grain and stand up, stand in the gap? 100%, I've already done it.
Chuck Gillen.
Well, everybody knows the towers in Colleyville. I'm the only person that voted against them because I thought they were too expensive. I stood up to the mayor, I stood up to the rest of the council and said, we're spending too much money. I'm sorry?
The mayor wasn't there for that vote.
Understand, but I talked to the mayor before that. The mayor was very aware of where my stance was. I've stood up against development projects that I didn't think were in the best interest of Colleyville. So yeah, I make difficult decisions all the time. I stand on my convictions. The people voted for me to voice their opinions, and that's what I do.
Eric Morris.
Okay, so one thing to know about me, I'm an unapologetic fighter. I never compromise on values, morals, or principles. This is public record, by the way, what I'm about to tell you. Last year, I faced a similar situation in Haltom City, where I had board and committee members for a variety of boards come to me complaining, saying that they had leadership on their board who was trying to force them off the board because they wouldn't vote their way. They were the one holdout on a certain agenda item. And I was the one who led the charge on that issue. I told the council, we need to put this on the agenda. We need to reform our boards and committees. This is not acceptable. This can't happen. There's me and one other council member who were trying to fix that. We were by ourselves trying to fix that problem in Haltom City. So I'm an unapologetic fighter. If I see some kind of wrongdoing, I'm going to address it. For example, with the Tarrant Appraisal Review Board, the ones who constantly listen to staff and they never question anything the staff tells or the appraiser tells them, I plan to address that. If they need to be removed, we'll remove them. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to allow it.
Saida.
Well, I'm an independent thinker, and I always voted for the people and what our citizens want, what our taxpayer want. I'm a big advocate for property owners' right. And if I saw something, I voted no for that. And for that, go back to 2019 until now, I am on P&Z, and my voting record shows that. Sometimes it's 6-1, 4-1, 5-1, and that one, most of the time, is me. Not because I'm against the development, but I'm against the wrong development. And thank you.
Kelly Rick.
Listen, I've done it in Colleyville. I found that prayer is very helpful before making these big decisions. Because when you have peace going up there and you're confident in your decision, even if you're the one or the two vote that's the no to something and it's not the popular thing, if you base your decisions on facts and not feelings and gather the most information you can with prayer and you can't make a wrong decision. If you have peace going in there, I stand by all the decisions that I've made, including the towers, and you've got to be able to stand up for that. One of the things we did in Colleyville is we were the first city in the entire world to open. I mean, we got hate mail from people all over the country. And I thought, we have smart citizens. I mean, you don't need a mandate to put your britches on every day. I mean, why does everybody want a mandate? We've done it before and it wasn't popular, but again, looking back, it's so silly. It was the right thing to do, so.
Eric Crow.
being a leader requires you to stand out on the ledge. Oftentimes you have to stand out there by yourself and you have to do what you think is and feel is right. To give an example, the reason I brought up the HOA board, because that's the example I'm going to use. We recently transitioned from our developer to to property owners. And we had a board of directors, and it was made up of 3 people, and our bylaws allowed us to go to 5 with a vote of the board. Well, my manager told me no. My other 2 board members told me no. And they said, if you get to 5, it's going to be a nightmare because you're going to have 5 different opinions and you're never going to get anything done. And so for 6 months, I sat and battled, and I finally was able to convince the other 2 members to change their vote, and we now have 5 board members on our board.
Thank you, Eric. Trey Feller.
Well, to start off with, I've taken 0 donations from anyone. I'm self-funding myself so that I'm not owned by anyone. There's 2 council members right back there that I served with that'll tell you, we've had contentious issues where I voted against them, and those are 2 of my dearest friends. And so standing, you know, I went and served on the council when I was 22 years old, and y'all know Haltom City is a very contentious town, very much so. Eric can attest to that probably. No matter what side you're on, it's going to be the Hatfields and the McCoys, and that's just the way it is. So you have to have a thick skin. There's no doubt about it. Like I said, I've voted against budgets. I voted to lower taxes and been 1 of 6 to vote against a tax increase. I've various issues when I've served both as council member and mayor. As a business owner, you know you're not always the popular guy, but you have to be the adult in the room. And that's one thing I tell people. It's important right now that we have people who are willing to stand up and be the adult in the room and not worry about what someone else thinks.
Thank you, Trey. All right. I think we're leaving time for some public Q&A. So that's I'm excited about. But I've got one last question. Chuck Kelly's going to be first. So the current board has 5 members. You're going to get the tax assessor is going to become a voting member, and then we're going to have 3 people that come from this election. And so as the 3 publicly elected board members, you have a unique authority and power, and that is to have a greater say in who is hired on to the appraisal review board. And the appraisal review board is the 3-member panel that oversees each individual protest, and they get to make a decision on whether or not the protest goes in favor of the district or the property owner. And so the question is, what would you be looking for in ARB member candidates? And do you have the stomach to fire someone who has an obvious bias against the taxpayer?
Well, I look at it this way. We need a diversity of opinion. We need a diversity of background and experience. I probably would be against having MLS members on because I think that might create a different bias. I'd be against having some of the other people that have shown bias before. So I think we need to look at everyone's background, evaluate them individually, and then look at what would be the right combination of people to put together. And yes, I've had to fire many people. I had to fire a guy who crawled under desks and were looking up girls' skirts. That was the most uncomfortable conversation I've ever had, and I hope I never have to have one again. But I had it, got it done, moved forward. Thanks.
Eric Morris.
So you have to remember at the end of the day, the appraisal review board, it is a citizen-led committee. It is a citizen committee. That's what it is at the end of the day. Some of the things I'm looking for when it comes to possible candidates for the appraisal review board, first of all, they need to be flexible, okay? A lot of people coming before them, they haven't went through that process that many times. They only go through it once a year, if they've ever been through it before. They don't know what they're doing. They're still learning. You have to have members that are flexible, that are understanding that the people coming before them, they don't know how to make an argument. They don't speak before a board. You have to understand that. And we need board members that will understand that. Secondly, we also need board members that don't have a conflict of interest. You know, a lot of people who are in the industry, they may rule one way or another in a way that might benefit them somehow. So that's a really important thing that we need to look for. If I find out that there's any appraisal review board member who is consistently voting one way, no question, if they're just listening to what the appraiser's telling them, rarely do you vote 90% of the time for one thing all the time. If I find that there's an appraisal review board member that is consistently voting with staff, without question, I'm going to work for their removal.
Saida. It is, what are you looking for in the ARB members that you hire, and do you have the stomach to fire one when they are working against the interest of the taxpayer?
I would like to share something. When I was appointed as appraisal review board member back in 2018 of October, I was the youngest one among all, and I'm still the youngest one among all. There are Alzheimer's patients sitting there. One lady, she write down her name on the paper and told me if she forgot to tell her name, that Miss dash dash dash, just point at me. So I talked to the appraisal ARB chairman at that time, but he didn't take any action. It's the job of the ARB chairman to fix those issues, not the TAD board. The other thing, what was that?
What are you looking for in those that you hire and you have the stomach to fire?
At least appraisal review board members should know how to use the calculator. What is the 10% of the property value? What is the 5% of the property value? At least have simple maths, ability to do the maths.
Thank you, Saida.
You see, he is smiling because he knows what's going on there.
All right, terrific. You guys did a great job. Let's give them a hand. Uh-oh, dang, I'm so sorry. You're fired. I'm putting you to the test right now.
Get up there and do it.
Callie, you're next. Sorry.
But he spent too much time with you.
Okay. I'll be simple and quick. I really just want to hire taxpayer-friendly review board members. I think that there needs to be, again, no conflicts of interest. And also, I mean, there's some people that were appointed by the previous administration that have been there a long time. I think there needs to be some kind of term limits set in place. Like in Colleyville, we put term limits on ourselves. That's why I'm out the door. And so I think it's important that we have fresh ideas and things in there, and that they're listening to the citizens, communicating, educating them. And if people bring evidence coming with them when they're during the appeals process, that they feel heard and that their things are getting communicated to them properly. But again, I think at the end of the day, it's about working for the taxpayer, not necessarily all the taxing entities or in favor of the review board. But I have 8 seconds. But I also wanted to see if we could have some kind of, if we can see how these people are voting again, because you're not going to vote the same. If they're constantly voting in favor of the review board, then we need to kind of reevaluate what's going on there.
Thank you, Callie.
Yes, I would fire them because I would fire if they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. We would definitely hold them accountable.
Perfect. Eric Crowell. Don't worry, I'll call on you. Y'all passed the test, so we're good. Well, we can finish now.
I said the appointment to the appraisal review board, right? It's a job interview, so I'm looking for someone who's gonna be level-headed and use sound judgment. But the number one thing is you'd have to be a property owner. And I want young people, and I want old people, and I want everyone that owns property. I want commercial property owners on the board, and I want residential property owners on the board. I have what's called, I don't know if there's any first responders in here, I have what's called a paramedic BS radar. What I mean by that is when you run on someone on the ambulance and they tell you what their complaint is, after doing it long enough, you understand who's full of it and who's serious. So I would use that. And I also want someone who's gonna have the best interest of the taxpayer. Because again, ultimately, that's what these three positions are for, they're taxpayer elected positions.
Perfect, thank you. Trey Fowler.
First of all, just as Eric said, you have to be a property owner. There's no, I don't think there's any other exception in that. I think it's important that we work to diversify those boards. And I know I hate to use the word diversity, but it's not all bad. And I say, you know, I think you go into a lot of these panels and you go in there different day after day, and it's the same, you draw the same panel, it's the same members, you know, so I think that they need to be shuffled around. I think we need to look at trying to use some young people with some more experienced people, and get a good blend. And I think when doing that, I think that'll be beneficial to the property owner and the person that's in front of the appraisal board. As far as hiring and firing people, I've unfortunately had to fire 2 city managers during my terms. I'm business owner for 31 years, so firing people is not what you want to do. I tell them, it's not that I'm firing you, you have made choices that don't allow you to stay here any longer. So I think it's, firing people is not necessarily a problem.
Matt Bryant.
This is a fun one for me. So I've held several hundred protest hearings, and I've had to fire, in the protest hearings, I've had to fire 2 appraisal district people 2 different times that just stepped out of line, and I said, we got to stop this hearing. What he just said has killed this entire, hearing. I need you to bring Randy Armstrong in from TAD, bring in Owen from the ARB. So I've fired people in that protest room. One was an ARB member for literally falling asleep. And I just said, we can't do this. I mean, saying to your comments, of course, not on. And so what I would look for, being responsible to hire the ARB members, I'm not looking for coffee and donuts type, people that are just there for the coffee and donuts. No, I'm looking for genuine, data-driven, process-driven. You know it when you see it, and we can populate these review boards with capable people. It can happen.
All right, does anybody want to go again? Okay. Well, I got excited thinking that we had a lot of time for audience questions. Laura, what do we have time for? Let's do it. Tee off.
So there is no 30-second, 1 minute. You might get a prize if you go really fast. All right, speed it's not a speed round. Please don't read that into it. But these are going to be pretty quick. They're not just yes or no, but they're pretty close to that. And so we're just going to start right here. All right, so be ready. You don't have to stand. Right. You can stand if you want. It's your option. Do you own property in Tarrant County? And if so, how many times have you appeared before the appraisal review board? Like to protest your property, not on the board.
Well, I owned a property in Tarrant County since 2009.
Have you ever appeared before that?
For protest?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, every year.
Yes, I previously stated I have 29 parcels that I have in Tarrant County. I've appeared, I think, for the last at least 30 years, and anywhere from 12 to probably average 12 to 18 hearings a year.
Okay.
I do not currently own property, but that's going to change shortly. I'm leaving city council right now because I'm house hunting, and it's a very crazy market. So that'll change shortly.
My husband and I own multiple properties here in Tarrant County, and every year we protest.
I own one property, North Fort Worth. I protest every year, but I've never actually shown up for a formal hearing.
Got 80 properties. I protest every one of them every year. You get their attention by filing the mass protest, which is something Chandler was real good at. I mean, if they're not going to respond, we're going to bury you. And so, yes, I filed every one every year because it sends them a message. The amount of hearings I've gone to, it's between 300 and 500.
I have one property. I protested every year, but now I hire the guy over there.
Smart. Okay, we're going to start with you. you, Trey. Will you be pursuing appraisals every 3 years and a 5% cap on appraisal values?
No, ma'am. I believe 2 years is the biannual appraisal makes more sense, in my opinion. It's more reflective of the market. The 5% cap, I believe, yes, but I believe 2 to 5%. I believe we can negotiate with the board and look at something closer to the COLA. And so I think that somewhere you can negotiate between 2 and 5%, but across the board, not just in owner occupied, but all properties.
Yes, I support 5% cap and a 3-year appraisal system. Markets rarely correct in a year or two. A lot of times it takes longer than that for a housing market to correct. So yes, I absolutely support that, and contrary to what people might tell you, it can be done. It can be done.
Yes, I'm open to that and exploring ideas on how to make TAB better. And if that, until you get in there and see how it affects everything, I think it's wise to. I'm definitely in favor of that for sure. But I definitely think we need to explore other ways too on how to make TAB better.
Will you be pursuing appraisals every 3 years and a 5% cap on appraisal values?
So, I would support a cap at 5%, but that's not a board issue, that's a Austin legislator issue because it's under the homestead of the 10% cap. In the assessment, I would be open to exploring it once every 3 years if it would reduce administrative costs, but keep in mind, it's not gonna lower your property taxes because the taxing districts will just change the rate to match it to be whatever they need to get to the budget numbers.
Speed round. Yes. Once every 3 years. Yes, 5% cap.
I'm open to look at every option that helps the taxpayer.
Great, thank you. Okay. No.
You don't want to hear?
No.
Where's the question? So currently, the state law says, and I bring the
book. Oh my goodness.
And page number 172, there it is tax. And it says, because I'm 40 over, all taxable property is appraised at its market value as of January 1st. It's not my decision, it's Austin's decision. And if you see the market is going up and difference, and what the cap is talking about, you're talking about 5% cap, it's for residential homestead, not for non-residential, not for non-homestead properties. Non-homestead properties, your market value and your appraised value is always the same. And a whole lot of people own several properties, they know that. And if it's residential homestead, because of the market and because of the cap, there is a difference in market and your appraised value. And appraised value is the value that you pay taxes on that. So what happens when it's difference, appraisal district has a right to increase it 10% every year until it matches the market value. And that's the state law, not my decision. What I want to do, I will explain it later.
Thank you for that. Okay. So, I think we're starting with you, Eric, right? Have you ever voted in a Democratic primary?
Thank you.
No.
Yes or no?
No.
Yes. No.
Yes, to vote against Obama.
Yes, but appraisal is not blue issue, red issue, purple issue, yellow issue. It's everyone's issue. When people are taxed out of from their houses, it's not the party issue. And that's why this election is non-partisan. End of the discussion.
have a closing statement as well, and you can add to that.
No, ma'am.
We're starting to- Okay, the next one. Nope, we're not doing yet. We're gonna start with Callie, this one. This is another question. That was a yes or no. Yeah, we can do that one. Okay, who are your top endorsements?
Well, Tim O'Hare, Sheriff Wayburn, Rick Burns, I mean, how many,
Let's stop with 3, probably is good, or less, either one.
This is easy for me. I have none, because I'm not requesting any, because it's nonpartisan.
Tim O'Hare, Matt Kraus, Tony Tinderholt.
My one and only endorsement right now is the MetroTex Association of Realtors.
Well, I have the endorsement of one of the most conservative mayor of Tarrant County. It's a former Colleyville mayor, Mayor Richard Newton. And Shannon Wood, District 2 from TCC. Claudia Bell